Shanksville, Pennsylvania at the Flight 93 Memorial. We thought we'd give you kind of a little tour, talk to you a little bit about what our day was like, and a little bit of a remembrance of what life was like for us 21 years ago on that day. So welcome to the Flight 93 9/11 Memorial. We hope that there's something gained from today's video, but there's a lot to see. So if you're curious, let's take a walk through history. So we decided to come here to kind of pay our respects, and this is our first time here, and to see what the memorial was all about. There is a visitors center here that they do not allow cameras into, and we respect that, obviously. It's free of charge. Everything here is free of charge. But we went into the visitor center, we turned off our cameras and took a look. It was unexpected, the reaction that I know I had, and I think we both had.
Certainly, yeah.
Walking into the visitor center. It is quite a layout. It is narrowish and long and partitioned. And it takes you through the story of the day. And the first wall partition you walk into gives you just the normalcy of the day. It's got a copy of the Wall Street Journal, dated that day. Just normal artifacts that you would see throughout the day before anything happened, before anybody knew anything was happening. And then as you walk around that partition to the back side of it, you see the video footage from national TV broadcasts of the first plane hitting and then the second plane hitting. And it was one of those moments that kind of brought you back to where you were at that point in time. And then when you turn around and you look at the front of the next partition, things got really, really real. There were headsets that you could hold up to your ear to hear the conversations that passengers were having with loved ones who they called. So the recorded conversations that were happening to TSA, the voicemails that were left to their loved ones, all of those were being played out there. We couldn't listen to that.
No way.
It's kind of a blur after that as to what's in there, except for a couple things. So you turn the walls and you see relics and artifacts from the wreckage of all the planes. You see a lot of timeline information there. And then there was a wall that I couldn't,
Yeah, it was the photos of all of the passengers and the crew, and little excerpts from their lives and things. It seemed their family photos, their pictures. Like we've been to Gettysburg before. We've been to, places that are pretty heavy and quite difficult to be in. There's a very somber sensation, of course, but this is the most present one for sure, filled with those sensations. It's a lot.
Yeah, sometimes when you go to places, you have a lot of conversation in those places, and there isn't a lot of that here. There's a lot of reflection that happens, at least from what we've seen today. People who are, staring at artifacts or staring off into the field where the plane crashed, and just, quiet introspection and reflection. I got to say that the people who work here,
and most of them are volunteers, it seems too, right?
Yep. Phenomenal
Yeah, absolutely.
Phenomenal people. We spoke to Linda on when we were inside the building. There's an observation window from inside the building, inside the visitor center, and she was fantastic. She told us her story about the day. I don't know what Linda did before she does this.
I overheard that she was a flight attendant.
That makes sense.
So we didn't ask her directly, but I think that's what I heard.
She was on a plane that morning, and just like all the rest of the planes in the United States, it got grounded. Her plane landed prematurely in Chicago. She told us that when they were in O'Hare, they started making announcements that everybody needs to leave the airport immediately, because at that point, they didn't know if airports were going to start to be targeted or if other buildings like the then Sears Tower, now the Willits Tower in Chicago, if that was going to be next. They wanted to make sure that people were away from large buildings or large landmark areas for their safety. So they started running the trains for free in Chicago. She said that she had an apartment and she was heading there, and she saw a friend of hers on the street, and her friend said, "Did you hear the fourth plane crashed in Shanksville?" And Linda said, at that point she was like, "Where in the world is Shanksville?" And now it's just an ironic twist of fate that she's here working at this memorial. She was so absolutely fantastic, so nice, and she could see that we were obviously a little distraught, and she was kind, and a great conversation, and so Linda, if someday...
Very comforting.
Yeah, she was.
Extraordinarily comforting.
So Linda, if someday you happen to see this, which who knows, that may or may not happen, but I'm sorry I didn't talk to you much. I was overwhelmed, but thank you for taking the time. That was
thank you.
Very nice. So in remembrance of 9/11/2001, 21 years ago, you were 7 years old.
I was in the first grade. Word kind of trickled in throughout the morning that stuff was not right in the country. The first sign of any of that was really, the school principal comes in without really acknowledging any of the students greatly, which he usually did. He usually would come in and he would say hello to everybody and make sure we were all cool, and he was really cool. He was an awesome guy. And eventually I get a bathroom pass, use the restroom, and on my way there, I look down the hall. My mom is at the end of the hallway, or a couple moms, or something of the sort, basically. Just people who aren't really supposed to be here on a random Tuesday morning. I'm on my way back toward my classroom. I catch the school principal. 7-year-old me, full sprint at him, something's wrong. What is going on? I need to know. And he actually did tell me. He articulated to me what was going on, the best that you can in the most appropriate way that you can to a 7-year-old. And then from there, we're probably going to go home soon, and school's going to be out early and stuff. And he expressed all that to me. And I remember going home, and that's all that was on every television channel. I remember being upset because I wanted to watch cartoons and I couldn't, because I'm 7 years old at the time, and that's what happens, right? A lot of things you're not supposed to see as a 7-year-old that you do. A lot of conversations you're not supposed to hear as a 7-year-old that you do. I feel like 9/11 is the divide between my generation and the next one. And if you don't remember it, if you can't articulate to me exactly where you were and exactly what you were doing, then you can't be in my club. That was a strange time, and I remember you were at work, right?
Yeah, so 21 years ago, I was working for a retail company that was going out of business. We were, about halfway through the going out of business sale, and the corporate Muzak that we normally had playing overhead was shut off because not all of the stores in the company that I was working for were going out of business at that particular moment. It was kind of a strange day. It was a day when you are going through that whole process of going out of business. You spend your day mostly condensing and consolidating the building that you're in. And that particular day, I decided to close down the electronics department, shut off all the TVs, and move them to a new location. In the meantime, we had regular radio playing on the speakers overhead. At some point in time, I remember there was no music playing. And so I kind of lifted an ear to the ceiling to kind of hear what was going on. And that's when I heard the news reports that were happening that came over the speaker. And of course, all the TVs were off and unplugged, and we were getting ready to move them. As soon as I really got an understanding of what was going on, I remember looking over to my assistant and saying, get those TVs moved and plugged in right away. At that point, nobody really understood what was going on in the nation. When we finally got the TVs turned on, the second plane hit. When that happened, everybody knew. I got on my phone and I called your mother and I said, what are you doing? Where are you? And she said, oh, I'm just cleaning the house. And I said, have you seen the news? Have you heard anything? And she said, no, what are you talking about? And I said, I need you to turn off the sweeper and turn on the TV, which she did. And while she's watching, I'm talking to her. And it was at that point that we started talking about what might be happening in this country and what our response as a family would need to be. Because we had 4 of the 5 kids in school at that point. And then the plane hit the Pentagon. And I remember telling your mother, go get the kids. That's why she was at your school.
Yep.
Because we had had that conversation. I continued to work, and the loss prevention specialist at the store came up to me and said, hey, you know, I've got kids in school. If anything else starts to happen, I gotta go. And, you know, of course, the Pentagon happened. But then we also heard on the radio about a rogue plane in Cleveland airspace. And with us living in Northeast Ohio, that was a real kind of a push to go get you and the rest of the kids. And that plane is the plane that ended up here in Shanksville, PA. There were some extremely historic people. Historic meaning brave. The people that were on board that plane, they obviously got word as to what was going on using the airphones on the plane, calling their loved ones, hearing about the 2 World Trade Centers and the Pentagon. So they knew, because of what was happening on their plane, that the only choice they had to save more lives was to formulate a plan and storm the cockpit. And the result of that is that the only lives that were lost on that plane were the people that were on that plane. Super heroic efforts. And these people need to be remembered because of the actions that they took and the heroic actions that led to possibly saving thousands of more lives. So I urge you, if you are ever in Western Pennsylvania, in the Pittsburgh area, take the time and take the drive. We're only about an hour out of Pittsburgh, and we just wanted to pop into your world today and say hello and give you kind of a little bit of an idea of what is here. And we know that the site of the Freedom Tower, which is where the World Trade Centers were, gets a lot of the visitors, and rightly so. Absolutely, the amount of lives lost there and the heroics of the first responders, it deserves all the credit that it gets. But if you want to go to a place that's a lot quieter and gives you more time to reflect, stop by Western Pennsylvania and visit this memorial. It is fantastic. Do you have anything else?
Like you said, if you're ever anywhere near Shanksville, and even if you're not, you should probably come here anyway.
You should.
It's beautiful. The actual place itself is marvelous. This is one of the most impressive anything. One of the most impressive structures, campuses, memorials, parks, whatever you want to call it, that I've ever been in. It's incredible. And it's well deserved for sure.
If this video was of any value to you, please take a moment and like, subscribe, comment, click the notification bell.
Yeah, and tell us where you were
That
when
would be
9/11
great.
happened. Tell us your story too, because I feel like this is something that we're all connected to each other with in some strange way.
We are.
Everybody has a story, and I think everybody knows where they were. So we'd like to hear from you about that.
All right, thanks for watching, folks. We're going to head home, but we'll see you next time as we explore more curious history. Take care.